Well, welcome back to the Cordell Cordell and Men's Divorce video and podcast. I'm Scott Trout, CEO and Managing Partner of Cordell Cordell. And as always, we continue to bring you the latest information and topics related to COVID-19 and how it's affecting all aspects of family law before, during, and after divorce. And as we always begin our video and podcast, we talk about that this isn't an attorney-client relationship, and it should not be taken as legal advice either. As always stated, that your case and circumstances always matter, and the specific facts likely would alter anything that we discuss. And so these are really meant to be talking points for guys to go seek out a consultation with an attorney. If they already have one, contact your attorney. If not, you can seek one out. And as always, we're available for consultations via telephone or virtual or in person where appropriate, but health and safety is always a priority. So check with us at cordellcordell.com or 866-DADS-LAW, and we certainly can help you and guide you through this process. So today with me is Erin out of our St. Louis office. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure. Well, so I know today, we're beginning to roll out and open up slowly in phase one in the state or county of St. Louis, state of Missouri. Many guys have questions about, and you've seen it in the news. I've talked about it in my virtual town hall. I've talked about it on a number of podcasts, and that is frontline workers and trying to kind of either make a plan, protect the home. What should guys do? Because I know last week in the virtual hall, we had another question. What do I do? My current wife is a frontline worker. Are there steps I should be taking? What can I do? And I mean, that's a huge question because there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of unknown. So really, maybe you can talk a little bit about generally what guys should be thinking about and actions they should be taking.
So it's a little surprising to me at 10 weeks into this that this is still such an issue, that it is so difficult to get a party to just say, hey, this is what I'm doing to protect our children when I'm coming home from work. And instead of being met with a simple response, oh, I'm doing X, Y, Z, instead it's, I don't have to tell you anything, which, if you're looking out for the best interest of your children, it's a little disappointing. But yet here we are time and time again. The client calls me, just like you said last week, his ex-wife works in a hospital. Her significant other is a physician in an ER. So he wants to know, what are you doing every time you come home from work to make sure our son isn't exposed? And basically he was left with, it's none of your business. So that's really unfortunate. So then he calls me and I have to step in and, I contacted his attorney and ultimately it's kind of new, just come up with a COVID protection plan that it goes in the court file that says, look, every single time, both parties have to exchange what we're doing every day we come home from work to ensure the safety of our kid. And if that means you pull in the garage, you undress, you go straight up to the bathroom and take a shower before you even see or have any contact with the kids, then that's fine. And it's not about wanting to know more about your life or what you're doing or to critique you. It's just a fair question to protect the kids, especially now with the new virus that apparently children are getting, this Kawasaki virus. It's even more important that the parties are transparent about what is happening with the kids when they get home from work.
It is. It's if you just take the virus out of the situation, and let's say, I always talk about it being equal opportunity outrage, and that is if I've seen it, guys, if they have an inherently dangerous position, and maybe they're working at home, and there's things that are dangerous. I mean, you can take anything. Let's just say a guy's a chemist and he's working with dangerous chemicals at home. That the other side would go absolutely crazy and ballistic if they were putting this child at risk with something related to their employment. And I know this is a sensitive topic out there. And I know that it's not about, and I think as you suggest, it's not about saying you are never going to see this child and changing custody in a room. It's about a plan and making sure that both parents are comfortable, and it requires their cooperation, right?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't be in court if the parties could communicate well. I mean, whether or not it's a modification or a divorce. But I still think, that when you're talking about a pandemic, which none of us have ever been through, this is all uncharted territory. We're all sort of learning as we go. But something as basic as, hey, can you give me information about what you're doing to protect our kid? It's still shocking to me that we have to go through the courts, which we all know and we've heard over the last 10 weeks is stagnant. So right now we're trying to do mediation or do anything we can, but it's still it's like pulling teeth to get some basic information. So in come the lawyers to have to handle these, this very basic question that is so important.
So what should guys be asking for to be in this plan? Is there something particular? And then, whatever that is, I imagine it should be in writing, and both parties should sign it so that it's something that they both can enforce.
Right. So literally just in drafting them over the last couple of weeks, I've just titled it a COVID protection plan that is just filed in the court. It's not necessarily a court order, but it requires both parties to put in there because obviously one party is saying, well, don't worry about what I'm doing. I want to know what you're doing. Okay, so let's make it fair. Everybody has to write a step-by-step plan that makes sense, that everybody can get behind, that is as basic as step one, this is what I do as soon as I pull in the garage. Just so that everybody's on the same page as to what's going on. And they know that their kid is safe with a frontline worker. Which, we all appreciate that, I think, they're obviously a frontline worker, but because of that, you have to take extra precautions to make sure that everybody is safe. So put it in writing, everybody signs it, and we file it with the court. And then that way, let's say they find out that, that isn't something that the parent's doing. Then we have a recourse where we can go to court and say, look, maybe short of filing like a child order protection, because frankly, it is so serious that if your child is being exposed and there isn't a plan to ensure their safety, you can go and file for child order protection. I did it a few weeks ago because a parent was sending the child to daycare, and she lived with her parents who were over 70. So when dad had the kid, the child was going to daycare, and she didn't agree to that because then when she had custody, she's exposing her parents who are over 70 years old. So she went and filed a child order protection and got it because that kid cannot be in daycare when somebody is in the house that's over 70 and that's higher risk.
Yeah. It makes us think, it matters in ways we never imagined. I'm thinking even beyond just the idea of COVID. If you may have a parent who works with biological hazards inherently, now we got to think about it. And I've mentioned this probably about 6 weeks ago in our virtual town hall or in one of our webinars, and that is we probably should be thinking that, you titled this the COVID protection plan, but maybe we start including pandemic provisions. There are guys watching right now that are in the middle of a divorce, and maybe they should be thinking about what should this pandemic provision provide for that requires the parents to get together, that requires certain actions and activities, that avoids this uncertainty and this vagueness that we don't know what to do, right? They should be thinking about this.
Well, I think that's a perfect transition to your parenting plans, your ultimate parenting plan. So if you're going through a divorce or a modification right now, maybe you can get through it and you can have it entered before, let's say, August or the school year starts. Like I said before, it's uncharted territory. So maybe we should have a pandemic clause put in parenting plans that, if this goes away, like everybody hopes, once the vaccination comes out, then you will never need that part of your parenting plan. But there's others, the CDC and the WHO, they're also saying it's not going to go away, that come August or September or flu season, it's going to make another round and it's going to be even worse. Who knows? We just don't know. So why not we've got to start talking about that and making sure that unless you want to be back in court in 4 months and go through this whole process again, we should be putting something in place. Just like you said, a pandemic clause that says, okay, let's say schools, we don't know how it's going to work with schools. I think some universities are coming out and saying they're not opening next fall. We don't know about elementary schools, grade schools, even high schools, and not so much in St. Louis. We don't know we haven't heard yet. So let's say they don't open. And we're left with parents juggling what to do about homeschooling kids, especially if they're not, they're divorced or an emotion modify. One parent goes back to work, the other parent doesn't. That should all be it should be considered now and put in a plan now so that come 4 months from now, you're not right back where you started.
For some dads out there, the coronavirus pandemic has become a pretext to limit access to their children. Other dads have been pushed out of key decisions affecting their children's lives. If you're one of those dads, Cordell Cordell is here for you, as always, but with expanded services. We can meet you in person or by video conference on weekdays, evenings, or weekends. Our goal is to step up our service to meet your needs now.
Right now, when our typical parenting plans, I was used to it, no one foresaw this happening, and there's general language that they should cooperate in the event, general items. But I think as specific as guys can get right now, especially if they're going through divorce or if they're modifying, and just try to include some language that alleviates or gives some clarity. So if there's a violation of it and you put in a protection or pandemic protection plan and some clauses, now you can seek relief rather than a judge saying,
Right.
look, I can't do anything here. If you want to modify it, go modify it. But now you're on the list of thousands of others that could take 12 to 24 months, because who knows how long this is going to backlog. But if you have an enforceable provision in some states, like family access motions for contempt may move a lot faster. I just think, as you suggest, this protection plan and a pandemic clause is so key. And as we look towards school, we don't know what's going to happen. And so I think we've been saying this for weeks now. Communication is key, and even retaining counsel. If you can't communicate with your spouse, and we have school upcoming, and you got to start discussing this, because we don't know if the distance learning is going to be the norm. Now we have to talk about custody. We got to make some changes. Go seek an attorney, right? Start having that discussion. Get an attorney to maybe start negotiating for you with her or her attorney, and iron this out. We've got 3 months before the beginning of the new school year, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I think that with the way things are going, I think we would all like more clarity. We're just not getting answers because no one knows what to do. So, we're anxious. We're litigators. That's our job. So we want to be in court. We want to get the results that we need to get for our clients. And instead, it's a lot of Zoom meetings, which is fine. But, the reality is, if you're back in court, it's just taking forever, and we do not know what to do. So we're just not getting any. We would like answers, which we're not getting. Everything is still up in the air week to week. I mean, I think that's why these podcasts are so important, because at Cordell, it's constant staying on the pulse of what's happening constantly. So, we're able to constantly update men or people going through this as to what is happening. And unfortunately, we're not getting the answers that we want. So we've got to improvise. And I think the best way to do that is to make sure you have these parenting plans that take into account the best way we can in terms of the knowledge we have available at that time. But ultimately, it will, you can put whatever you want in a parenting plan, at least in St. Louis, where we practice. You can be as creative as you want. You can do whatever you want if it means less litigation in the future. And then you can then go to court, and you can get in on a contempt. You can get in on a temporary restraining order if a parent's violating some pandemic clause that's in there. But at least then you're not tied up for, like you said, 12 to 24 months, because nobody knows what's going on with the court system right now. It changes daily. Yeah. So all we can do is try to keep everybody up to date, the best way we can, and to help everybody hopefully eliminate any future litigation by taking care of it right now.
And as the first day of every state across the country begins to open up, and after 9 or 10 weeks, everybody's like, well, I want to go somewhere. I want to at least get out of the house. Yeah. They want to change it up. They want to travel. Now, whether they drive, whether they fly, whether they train, whatever it is. So now is an opportunity where guys should be reaching out and discussing about travel plans and kind of, clearing the air, right? And trying to understand, with their spouse or the ex-spouse, hey, what are your plans? And if you're going to go somewhere, where? And let's talk through it. And let's, again, kind of this whole, as you suggest, whether it's COVID protection plan, pandemic protection plan, whatever, just a protection plan, but start thinking about it as the summer comes in. start having that conversation so you're not in a last minute, she's leaving in 24 hours, and then what do I do, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think travel, when the country starts to open up a little bit, I think that is going to be a huge issue moving forward. Because you're going to have a party that says, absolutely not. I don't care if there's mask, gloves. Absolutely not. So, but a lot of people are talking, hey, come the fall or late summer, I want to go to Florida. I want to, take the kids on a vacation. We didn't get to do anything all year. And that's fair enough. But then again, you're going to have one parent that says, no, I'm not risking that. And you can't, either you have to go back to court, either talk about it to go in your parenting plan now and have a list of everything that would have to be, whether it's you travel by some airfare or flight and you have to comply with everything that flight says. You have to do the temperatures. You have to just all the requirements from the CDC. Everybody hears about it. It's on a 24-hour newsfeed. So that would have to be required. Maybe you put that in the plan. The other party might get, 30 days notice now, just because 2 weeks is just too short given a pandemic. Yeah. And if they still won't agree, then we got to go to court. Right. We've got to ask the court to intervene and decide if this parent can take their own child on vacation.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's now you start the process. And as you're talking, I'm thinking all these provisions that I'd want in there, like, because here I was looking over the weekend, just thinking, okay, at some point I want to go somewhere. And so I'm looking at different states, and some states have mandatory quarantine provisions for 14 days, right? And it's like when Stefani, I was talking about in our virtual town hall, picked up and left Oklahoma. And now the guy, her ex-husband is not seeing the kids, and they have a mandatory quarantine, whatever it may be. I was looking in different states that have that issue. And so maybe that's in a provision, as you're thinking about it, is that, neither parent shall travel to a state in which has a mandatory quarantine for any defined period of time unless there's written consent, right? Because they may intend to go for 7 days, but they've got to stay quarantined for 14. So what's the point of going? And I think the takeaway for guys right here, right now, is whether it's school or travel or custody, start thinking about a plan, start thinking of provisions that each of you will have to live by, right? And you're not going to ask any more than what you'd want of yourself. I mean, you're not going to want to pick up and travel to a quarantine city or a high-risk area just pick up Illinois and Chicago or Michigan or New York City. You're just not going to want to go there. I wouldn't want my spouse to take my children there, at least for now. Right. And then there's some point, as long as you both agree, and that's kind of the provision or the idea, create something that requires you to continue to work together as parents to foster and further the best interest of the children, period. But when you have vagueness and you have nothingness, in your plan, and it doesn't, we can't anticipate everything, but now that we're aware of a pandemic, that we can include it. So here's the takeaway, and it's good information today, Erin, is start meeting with an attorney, start thinking about these questions. Let's try to start incorporating them into your divorce and parenting plan moving forward, or even a modification if that's where you are, based upon some refusals and denials of custody. So it's really, really a good topic to talk about today.
Right.
So thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, as always, we try to bring you something that says, what can I do? What should I do? And what must I do? And I think we answered those, and that is seek an attorney. Let's start talking about a pandemic plan. We can call it a COVID plan, but you never know what the next thing is going to be. And now as we're faced with these issues, and guys from around the country, and as we get busier with these very same questions that I have and that everybody else has, we want to start planning and start putting together something that gives you a little bit of certainty moving forward, especially when you have uncertainty in divorce and uncertainty in custody. So again, seek out an attorney. If you don't have one, you can contact us at 866-DADS-LAW or find us on the web at CordellCordell.com. Again, thanks for joining. Continue to turn in every day. And join our virtual town hall this Thursday as well, where you can ask your questions and get answers live from our group of Cordell and Cordell panelists. So until next time, have a good week.